Elon Musk goes after Letitia James. She's going to lose this one, and I love it. We're going to get to that story at the end. So watch all the way to the end.
Drinking with my girls, hey, drinking with my boys, hey, bones in the air, now click, selfie, bones in the air, now click, selfie, bones in the air, now click, selfie.
This is the Quad Club. Shout out to the Quad Club, to the people that watch 4 videos a day. This is our 4th video. Thank you for watching. Let's get to first a few other articles where Letitia James has some heat. We will briefly cover, and then we'll get right to the Elon Musk versus Letitia James stuff. Coming right up. Welcome to Doug in Exile. Let's go. Here's the article. New York Post. An attorney general who helps bad guys and targets cops. Meet New York's Letitia James. I just like this general overview to remind you all that she helps bad guys and hates cops. These are New York values. You'd think the job of a state attorney general is to hunt down bad guys, or at least help other law enforcement nab them. But just try telling that to New York Attorney General Letitia James, who's now busy targeting good guys, local law enforcement officials who even think about helping the feds detain illegal immigrants. The Post exclusively reported James has demanded that Oswego County Sheriff's Office hand over documents that may show cooperation with federal agencies such as ICE and Homeland Security. So she wants documents on you if you so much as help them. She's going to bust a cop. This follows her similar bullying of Nassau County Sheriff's Office in the wake of reports that it has the nerve to help the feds enforce immigration law. Sources say she's likely to target more counties. To James, it seems aiding immigration enforcement is the crime of the century, so she'll use all her power to stop it. So this is a New York official, very different from Eric Adams in that she sees the good guys as the bad guys and the bad guys as the good guys. Doesn't her office have anything better to do? Yes, we know New York's wacko statutes and executive orders by governors Andrew Cuomo and Kathy Hochul, who are also in New York politics. They purport to restrict local cops' efforts to help federal agents enforce immigration laws. So remember, ICE agents are federal. They go in as states' rights and try and gum everything up and defend the illegals and their sanctuary city status. Yet, surely there's enough other work for her staff to focus on. Crime statewide, for starters, rose 31% from 2019 to 2023. That would be known as the Biden administration. Maybe 1 year of Trump in there. And 46% in the city. That's the COVID stuff where cops weren't so quick on being able to show up and people were found to be in quarters with people they didn't like, but they had to keep buckling down with them. And besides, 80% of New Yorkers want the feds to boot illegal immigrants who've been convicted of crimes, a Siena poll found. Now, if that poll is correct, then it's entirely possible that Democrats could run into trouble if they get some kind of a Republican hawk running for office in New York. Then again, James also used her office to war on President Trump, and anyone who does his bidding for years, rarely a day goes by without her taking some legal action against him or his team. Last week, she sued the Trump for moving to overturn California's EV mandates the day before for deploying the National Guard to Los Angeles, not to mention her attempt to bankrupt Trump. In 2024, of course, James spent her years as New York City's public advocate, filing endless Hail Mary lawsuits too. None of it did much for regular New Yorkers. But it raised her profile enough to let her grab the AG office after a scandal forced out Eric Schneiderman. So this is just endless. Okay, we're going to keep getting to that article. Here's another one. Joint investigation stops cryptocurrency investment scam. Now, we just did some cryptocurrency with the Janine Pirro yesterday. New York Attorney General Letitia James said her office took action to stop fraudulent cryptocurrency investment scam that targeted hundreds of Russian-speaking nations worldwide. So these are the Russians. Here's Bill O'Reilly on some Letitia James news.
If you listen to Katz and Cosby yesterday, you heard the Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs for the Department of Homeland Security, Tricia McLaughlin, really roast the Attorney General of New York State, Letitia James. Now, Ms. James has made an announcement that she is investigating certain law enforcement officials in New York State that cooperated with ICE, with Homeland Security. Why is she investigating? Well, not many people know this, but in the year 2017, then Governor Andrew Cuomo signed an unbelievable executive order that restricts or bars New York State law enforcement from aiding and investigating, arresting, or deporting illegal immigrants.
That is, they're forbidden by law in New York to work with ICE to turn them over. That was Andrew Cuomo, guys. He's bad. Certainly had more power than Letitia James. Let's get to that Elon Musk article now, because this involves free speech. And you guys know that is my main wheelhouse, is free speech. I think it's my number one issue. Well, number two, probably number one is life. Number two is free speech. Musk's X sues New York over requirement to show how social media platforms handle problematic posts. So this is Letitia James in New York demanding, this happened today, guys, or this came out today, demanding that Elon Musk prove that he goes after problematic posts. Now, if you're X and there's 1 million posts going up a day, probably more like 10 million a day, you can't police them all. So they want to know that's why all these companies like Facebook, even YouTube, have to put out algorithms that start removing content, because people can put up some really bad stuff. But that's censorship, and Elon Musk tend to not do that on X, so they're going after him to make an example of him. New York, Associated Press, Elon Musk's X sued Tuesday to try to stop New York from requiring reports on how social media platforms handle problematic posts. Now, just imagine if every state made this announcement and every state said, we're going to go after any social media platform that has a problematic post. Let's say a racist joke, and every single state, and then Elon Musk would have to go in and sue every single state. That's the same problem that we're going to have with AI. Marjorie Taylor Greene was pushing back saying, hey, the states need to maintain their rights to be able to do these things. Well, this is what a state does. New York goes in and tries to, they're going to try and fine or shut down X for not policing speech enough. A regulatory approach that the company successfully challenged in California. New York's law, which Democrat Governor Kathy Hochul signed last year, is poised to take effect later this year. X maintains that the measure impinges on free speech rights and on a 1996 federal law that, among other things, lets internet platforms moderate posts as they see fit. That's Section 230. So in this one, it cuts good for our side. New York is improperly trying to inject itself into the content moderation editorial process by requiring politically charged disclosures about it, says Bastrop, Texas-based X Corp, argues in the suit. The state is permissibly trying to generate public controversy about content moderation in a way that will pressure social media companies such as X Corp to restrict, limit, disfavor, or censor certain constitutionally protected content on X that the state dislikes, says the suit, filed in federal court in Manhattan. And see, how do you remove it just for that state? What are you going to do? Remove my tweets just from the state of New York because I say something offensive? See? So then you have one state forcing X to censor for all of America based on Letitia James's values. New York State Attorney Letitia James's office said in a statement released Wednesday that it was reviewing the complaint and will stand ready to defend the constitutionality of our laws other than speech. The law requires social media companies to report twice a year on whether or how they define hate speech, racist extreme content, disinformation, and some other terms. The platforms also have to detail their content moderation processes and data on a number of posts they flag and actions they took, the extent of which the offending material was seen or shared, and more. So they have to go in and answer for these problematic texts and prove that they have done some policing over the year, twice a year. Sponsors, Senator Brad Holman-Segal. I hope none of you guys voted for this guy. These are all Democrats, of course. Assembly Assembly member Grace Lee, both Democrats, you didn't have to tell me that if they're going after free speech, have said the measure will make social media more transparent and companies more accountable. It's going to turn make the whole world accountable to New York. The law applies broadly to social media companies, but X is among those that have faced intense scrutiny in the years. And in the 2024 letter to an ex-lobbyist, the sponsor said the company and Musk in particular have a disturbing record that threatens the foundations of our democracy. The lawmakers wrote before Musk came for a time a close advisor and chainsaw-wielding cost cutter in the Republican President Donald Trump's administration. The two billionaires have since feuded and perhaps made up. No, they broke up. They are not made up. Since taking over the former Twitter in 2022, Musk, in his name of free speech, has dismantled the company's trust and safety advisory group and stopped enforcing content moderation and hate speech rules that the site followed. He has restored the accounts of conspiracy theorists and incentivized engagement on the platform without payments and content partnerships. Well, let me find this other quote real quick. I want to find this clip. Okay, let's take a look at this. This is AOC on free speech, just so you can see how bad it is. This is Democrats want to censor your speech.
I do think that several members of Congress in some of my discussions have brought up media literacy, because that is a part of what happened here. And we're going to have to figure out how we rein in our media environment.
How are we going to rein in our media environment? You, as a lawmaker, have nothing to do with that. You have zero constitutional right to limit free speech as a lawmaker. Zero, because we're to know what you think. You're just going to say everything Democrat's true and everything Republican is false. And that's why we have to go in and change the speech rules.
So that you can't just spew disinformation.
Okay, wait. What are you going to do about the disinformation about that Biden was sharp as a tack, that Biden was fine, that Biden was running the country?
For 4 years, we had a president who could barely string together coherent sentences after 6 p.m. Yet, this glaring fact went unreported, undiscussed, and unaddressed. Why? Because the Democrat Party, corporate media, federal bureaucracy, and big tech companies collaborated to conceal the truth from the American people, not out of ignorance, but because it advanced their own interests.
All of the lies that you guys told, the border was not wide open, you guys said. The border was secured. So where's the lies and disinformation for that? Never. It's never brought up. That's never what they mean. What they mean is she doesn't want Republicans to do normal Republican things. Like if you say, I don't think we should vote on this green bill, I don't think we should vote on solar panels, I disagree with it. She'll say, that's misinformation and hate speech. You have to be shut down.
And misinformation. It's one thing to have differing opinions, but
ignore everything after the but. They go, it's one thing to have differing opinions, and then everything after the but is going to be, but we have to come in and remove your differing opinion, is what she
Another thing entirely to just say things that are false. And so that's something that we're looking into.
You just said something false, and this is the scariest thing you'll hear all day as a Democrat thinking about how they can try to regulate your speech to make it more fair and not be what they consider a lie. Thank you guys to the Quad Club. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching. I'm Doug in Exile. Leave a comment, subscribe.